everyone, Tyler here, back to talk some more women's basketball this week. This week, honestly, has not been incredibly eventful. It just hasn't. But this weekend, ooh, baby. This weekend, the hoops are about to be immaculate in the city of Los Angeles. Two matchups that genuinely, this could be the Final Four. Like, if you just took these games, this could be the Final Four. Notre Dame playing at USC and South Carolina playing at UCLA. Oh my goodness. I am so incredibly excited for these two games. So I just kind of wanted to talk about it. Let's preview it. Let's start off with Notre Dame USC. That game comes first on Saturday. This is what we've been waiting for. Hannah Hidalgo and Juju Watkins sharing the court, going head to head against each other. Last season, both these players put the world on absolute notice. Absolute notice. And the thing that it just kind of happens with college basketball is, like, sometimes you just got to cross your fingers and hope that a matchup happens in March. And that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. And instead of having to cross our fingers, we get a home and home this year and next. This year, like I said, being at USC, next being at Notre Dame. And I just couldn't be more excited, frankly. I really couldn't. When it comes to these two players, like, this is a game that should set the world on fire. Like, it has the potential to be one of those games. Just seeing these two duel. But there's still so much talent around these players as well. You can't not talk about what Olivia Miles has been able to do since returning. The triple-double off rip, it could not have been more seamless for her to come back into the fold next to Hannah Hidalgo. There were, I won't say worries about them playing next to each other, but ultimately these are 2 point guards that are playing kind of side by side each other. And so it just, naturally speaking, it's just like, okay, we saw what Olivia did before Hannah came. We saw what Hannah did before Olivia got injured and wasn't able to play last season. What do these two look like together? And it couldn't look better. Like, it really could not look better. And then on the USC side, like, obviously the transfers that have come in and the freshman class as well. Honestly, it hasn't been as incredibly smooth as I anticipated and immediate. And this, we saw the very first game of the season, Ole Miss in Paris. I don't want to call that a trap game, because, like, it literally was the first game of the season. You've been preparing all summer for it. But ultimately, you're overseas. It's your first time playing together. Ole Miss is a notoriously disruptive defense year after year. And it looked like a struggle a lot of times. I'm still thinking that there is growth to be had in the half-court offense from what we've seen since, what we saw in that game. And this is the game where we are really going to find out about USC and just where they stand now. I feel like Notre Dame has it's different, but we still kind of have an idea of the identity, and they're still adding pieces back in off injury and things of that nature. So we just have a better idea a little bit of what Notre Dame does and what they bring. Whereas USC is still figuring it out, and that's okay. Let me preface that, but that's okay. But it is still ultimately being figured out. And this is going to be a game against a really, really good opponent, an opponent that should be deep into March this season, that this could be a Final Four, a national championship level game. And we are going to see it now, and it's going to be a really, really solid benchmark for both of these teams to figure out where they are now. And truthfully, like, that's where I'm looking at it from where this game will be decided. To me, feels like, how can USC operate in the half court on offense? That is the worry for me. And we know Hannah Hidalgo is an incredible defender and is going to be applying pressure, presumably on Juju Watkins for the entirety of the time that Juju Watkins is in the game. And that matchup, I can't emphasize this enough. That matchup is going to be so fun. That matchup is the type of things that sets the women's basketball world on fire and breaks containment into the general sports world. And I fully believe one thing that just has been unmistakable is the chip that Notre Dame has on their shoulder coming into this season, and what they feel like they have to prove, and that this is the last run for a lot of these players, more than likely, and some for certain. And this feels like the first game that they really get to genuinely prove it against a really, really good opponent. And I think they're going to be ready for that. And I'm interested in seeing how USC can find a way to punch back and find consistency throughout this game. They obviously have a talent to do so. There's literally zero question about that. Whether it be the transfers, the freshmen, obviously Juju, like, they have so much talent. But can they find the consistency to not let this game get away from them? It's going to be sold out. They already announced it. The energy is going to be crazy in there. Like, this is going to be a marquee matchup. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to see it. But also the other game in LA, is South Carolina versus UCLA. And the biggest thing for me is, when was the last time that you could say confidently that the best big in a game is not on South Carolina in a game that's involving South Carolina? Because Lauren Betts is one of the best bigs in the entire nation. You could probably make an argument for being the best in the nation. I think there's an argument to be made for that. She's at worst top 3, at worst. So you know, this is something we've kind of discussed on here. I've discussed it just in general. Is that South Carolina just had a different formula this year, and they don't have that back to the basket big that's really tall, super dominant. That is not what South Carolina has this year. And figuring out how they disrupt and slow down Lauren Betts is an interesting challenge that they haven't really had to question in the past in the way of how. It's been pretty confidently, our bigs got it. And it's just going to look different again this year. And I've talked about the differences in the formula when it comes to kind of putting points on the board on offense. But now defending on defense, this is really their first challenge with that, because NC State doesn't have a big. They were a high-ranked team. It was a Final Four rematch. They didn't really have a big, and certainly not a big that is as talented as Lauren Betts. And so this will be the first time that South Carolina has to figure that out in this way. But one really thing that has been so impressive to me is seeing the steps that Tahina Paopao has taken for South Carolina. The finishing at the rim has been solid. The three-point shooting is knocked down. Like, it feels like there's been a mentality change. And it feels like if any player on this team has taken the challenge of being a part and being one of the key factors in this new formula for South Carolina, it's Tahina Paopao. And it's something that has been a necessity for South Carolina. Even like the game against Clemson that they just played. Honestly, I think it was a lot of first half kind of playing with their food. It's not something that is unheard of with South Carolina at times. I mean, they pull away in the second half against Clemson, no worries. But in that first half, Tahina Paopao felt like the only one that was really like immediately shut up to play. And then the second half, they pulled away. But Tahina Paopao was there from the jump. And I that didn't go unnoticed to me. And I got to see her play in the NC State game in person. It was seeing her take on that challenge, take on that role of I am going to go get a bucket. And that's not something we've always seen from Paopao in the past. And we're seeing the bucket getting ability through it, whether it be the shooting from deep or getting to the rim. And so I am incredibly, incredibly excited to see how she responds in this game as well. And I think it really might come down to these teams are two of the deeper teams in the entire nation. Now, South Carolina doesn't have the same type of dominant bigs, but man, they got some bigs. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm acting like, oh yeah, South Carolina doesn't have any bigs. Because good Lord, do they have some bigs. But so does UCLA. And they have very varying styles and bigs that they can kind of adjust in the game, how the flow of the game is, whether it be a Tamia Gardner that is kind of spacing the floor for Betts or Janiah Barker. Like there's different ways that they can play this game. And I'll be really interested in seeing the chess match throughout this game to figure out what big is finding the most advantage. Obviously, Lauren Betts, I think, is going to be out there no matter what, but who goes next to her to find that out? And how can South Carolina counteract that with the big depth of their own? Because they have it. but do they have it in the right way to go against UCLA? That is my question. So I mean, these, like I said, I mean, these are 4 top 6 teams right now in the AP poll. This could be the Final Four. If you told me, hey, these are the teams that are going to be in Tampa Bay, I'd fully believe you. Like, there is a very, very, very real possibility that these are the 4 teams in Tampa Bay. I can think of some teams that probably got something to say about that. But if you told me it was these 4, I'd believe you wholeheartedly. So this weekend it's been a bit of a slower start matchup-wise to this season. Like, there's been a couple good ones here and there. Maybe some that were a little low-key, like, for example, an Auburn, Oregon, of 2 teams that are kind of figuring out, like, exactly how good they are. But, man, this weekend is, like, the real, like, okay, women's basketball season's here. It's this weekend with these 2 star-studded matchups. I can't wait. Let me know your predictions for these 2 games down below in the comment section, and I'll see you next time.